Alright, boys, with the penultimate episode of Hard Knocks airing last night and the rosters having to be cut down to 53 men, it's been an exciting past 24 hours if you're a Detroit Lions fan. Now, before we get into it, just like me with your mom last night, make sure to smash like because you really enjoyed this content, and go ahead and hit subscribe because I might be your daddy someday. So, roll the intro.
Welcome to Detroit!
So, Hard Knocks aired last night, and I think the biggest takeaway is that if you have been following the Lions for a long time, we've been discussing the culture change in Detroit for quite a while, and the biggest takeaway was watching the struggle, the internal strife that Dan Campbell is having with trying to cut these guys. It's no longer Matt Patricia. We've been saying this the whole, all of this offseason, all of last season, that the culture had to be different, the culture had to change, and the culture has changed because where Matt Patricia had to be the smartest man in the room and just walked in and told, I'm big brain Matt Patricia. I'm Matt Patricia, and I have the biggest brain in the room! Dan Campbell is the exact opposite. Not only does Dan Campbell lean into the fact that he appreciates, not necessarily appreciates, but leans into the fact that people think he's stupid, that means that they're underestimating him. And boy, you could really see just like the massive heart on this dude as he was just like struggling with the players that he wanted to, keep, the players that they were going to inevitably have to cut. The biggest telling point to me of the culture change was how the champion of Detroit, Craig Reynolds. Everybody loves Craig Reynolds. I have been preaching Craig Reynolds all offseason. I love Craig Reynolds. I love his story. I love the way he runs. He really hits that hole hard, just like your mom. And I definitely thought he was deserving of the third running back spot. Again, I discussed how against Pittsburgh I was a little concerned that he was getting run at the end of the game, but now knowing that we've moved on from Justin Jackson and Jamar Jefferson, I think Dan Campbell and the boys were just trying to really give those two an opportunity to make a claim, and I think that they had been expecting to keep Craig Reynolds, especially when you've seen the really intimate interview, or not interview, but the inside the coaches room where they had the entire coaching staff and the player personnel, and Deuce Staley flat out said it. I mean, you can't cut Craig Reynolds. He is what you champion as a coach. He embodies everything. The grittiness, the tough attitude, the rejection, the bounce back, the hard work, the dedication. Craig Reynolds embodies what Dan Campbell is about as a coach. He is a huge component of the engine that makes this team turn, even if he's not a starter. His presence in the locker room, his work ethic. You've seen him there. The clear connection that he has with his dad, his dad looked just like him, just like Dan Campbell said. His dad looked just like him. Really cool to see how his dad was like, man, that's why I'm proud of you because you threw that little boy them gloves, not because you made a good play, not because you are out here on the field, but the fact that you took the time to throw that little kid your gloves. That kid was in a Pittsburgh jersey, man, and his dad was like, hey, this is his birthday. That's the type of guy you want on your team. That's the type of leadership that you need out of your players. So in case you didn't see my last video, just to spoil the cuts that are coming ahead, we all know Tim Boyle and Jared Davis got cut, Devin Funchess got cut. I will make another video discussing all of the positions, where I was right, who got cut, who's going to fill what role. We knew Tom Kennedy was cut Monday, so we were really worried about does Brad Holmes have an ego on him about Trinity Benson? Clearly he doesn't, because Trinity Benson got cut, Tom Kennedy got cut, Maurice Alexander got cut. So we're going to be rolling into the regular season with 5 active wide receivers, considering J-Mo's on the PUP list. So you're looking at DJ Shark, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, Khalif Raymond, and Quintez Cephas as your wide receivers. Now, knowing that we kept 4 tight ends, again, assuming that one of them will be played in the H-back spot, I'm penciling Brock Wright because he's kind of our best overall blocking tight end. I imagine Brock Wright will fill that H-back role, but with the rotation and depth that we have at tight end, it wouldn't surprise me if we ended up splitting Hawk out. I think we're going to try and utilize Hawkinson more so like the Chiefs use Travis Kelce, more of a dynamic pass catcher. And I'm not saying Travis Kelce's a pass catcher. He's the 1 or 2 best tight end in the league. I'm just saying I expect to see the Titans probably utilize Hawk out wide more so in the time the time between J-Mo being out and J-Mo coming back to kind of fill in that position, considering we have 4 tight ends. Again, one of them should be filling the H-back spot. But again, with that athleticism that we have with Shane Zylstra and James Mitchell and Brock Wright and TJ Hawkinson, I mean, it gives us the ability to move pieces around on the board and put players in positions to maybe create mismatches or allow other players to get open by creating confusion. Like, why is Hawk split up? Who are you going to put on Hawk? Maybe it breaks up a position or a defensive package that the defense was running for our personnel package. I don't know. Maybe we're going to bring in some guy, make a claim off of waivers, because again, we have the second, I think the number 2 waiver claim after Jacksonville because of our record last year. I would rather see one of them waiver claims made on a back quarterback because, as I discussed, Tim Boyle was cut, which means that we're rolling in with David Blau. Now, you've seen on Hard Knocks, not only did they build up the David Blau storyline a couple episodes ago, but they really showcased, I mean, the guy's gritty, dude. He was clearly banged up. He was out there giving it all. But unfortunately, sometimes your all isn't the best. I mean, David Blau had made a decent argument for the number 2 quarterback spot. He's clearly the number 3 if we bring in somebody else. They're probably going to keep him on the roster, I assume. But David Blau, unfortunately, dude, as great of a guy as you seem and as hard of a worker as you are, you're just not at that level to, if Jared Goff got hurt for 3 to 4 weeks, I wouldn't feel confident in the fact that you could win me 2 or 3 of those 3 to 4 weeks. You know what I mean? Like maybe one of those, maybe, that's the best I'd give you, is maybe 1 week you could win a game. But I wouldn't have any confidence in you moving forward because, again, as great of a dude as you are, you're just not that level of quarterback. So we should probably look to bring in, because there was a lot of quarterbacks released, a lot of players put on waivers, a lot of young quarterbacks, project quarterbacks that we could potentially take a look at. We'll do a video discussing about where we should move forward if there's no moves made between now and then at the backup quarterback spot. But again, it's refreshing to know that not only was the fandom on the same page of Tim Boyle sucks, but also that Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell were like, look, we gave you every opportunity to succeed. You squandered it. So Tim Boyle, nice knowing you. Enjoy selling hot dogs. Briefly discussed earlier the running back room when I discussed Craig Reynolds, but yeah, so I was totally wrong about Justin Jackson. We completely released him. We didn't even put him on waivers, which I think their intention was to keep Justin Jackson as the number 4 running back, but I think he wanted more because if it was just an outright cut, or not outright cut, but an outright move on from this player, I think we would have placed him on waivers. He was outright released, which makes me think that Brad Holmes and him maybe had a discussion where it's like, look, man, please don't put me on waivers. Just flat out release me, because then I don't have to wait for a waiver claim to come in. I can just go work out for another team. I got good tape. In the preseason. Justin Jackson looked really good in the preseason. I'm really unfortunate that we couldn't keep him on the roster because he added another piece and another weapon that I think would have benefited our entire offense. So I think that was just possibly a gentleman's agreement between Brad Holmes and Justin Jackson. It came as no surprise that we released Godwin Igwebuike. I think the only aspect that he really added was his return game, and there was a lot of competition going into the return game, and none of the players that were in the competition ended up making it. So right now, I guess we just pencil in Khalif Raymond as not only our punt returner, but also our kick returner, which leaves me a little uneasy because I don't necessarily like the idea of our 4th wide receiver and our top, probably backup slot wide receiver as our lead return man. I mean, there's a reason why the NFL is trying to get rid of kick returns. And that's all I'm going to say. There was a whole slew of DBs that had to be cut because defensive back is one of them position groups that they bring in a lot of guys to work out because in that position, I mean, guys can pop, guys can bust. I mean, we didn't know if Jeff Okudah was going to have, the elevation in his play this offseason that he ended up having. I mean, there was a point, let's not forget, there was a point where Jeff Okudah was getting beat out by frickin' Will Harris for the number 2 cornerback spot. You can't have that, man. Jeff Okudah seemed to really solidify that up with his play Sunday against Pittsburgh. They never really talked about him much on Hard Knocks. We'll discuss, obviously, in a future video, the position groups. But, man, I told you what, boys. I've been championing his name all offseason. But Chase Lucas made it, baby! Chase Lucas made the team, man! I've been right about him from the jump, and I'm so happy that my boy Chase Lucas is on it. So let's go, Hart. Let's see what you got, Monty. Let's go! So in conclusion, we've seen yesterday a lot of roster moves that I think we all expected. The Stenbergs and the Dan Skippers and the Lambs. Basically, we ended up keeping eight offensive linemen because Matt Nelson's going to be a swing tackle. You know, you seen in Hard Knocks where Hank Fraley was like, well, I'd like to keep them all because Hank Fraley seems to have a heart the size of friggin' Jupiter, man. We made some cuts that we expected. We made some cuts that we didn't expect. I think it kind of came to a shock to everybody that we didn't end up keeping one of the really the two wide receivers that were in competition for the kick return job. I think at one point we all wanted Maurice Alexander and we all expected them to keep Trinity Benson because I thought Brad Holmes had a bit of an ego on him. To cut both of those guys kind of shocked me. So I guess Khalif Raymond's going to be our kick returner. But that also brings up an opportunity that Craig Reynolds can return kicks. And I know I'm just like riding this Craig Reynolds train, baby. But I love Craig Reynolds, man. I'm a Craig Reynolds guy, dude. Let's get Craig Reynolds. Let's go, man. I'm really hype on let Craig Reynolds return kicks. Let him be, the third running back. Hell, let him be the starting running back. I don't care, man. Again, as I said at the beginning, it was really good to see. It was really refreshing to see that not only has Dan Campbell been this emotional leader and had, not only the funny lines, but he's got this fire inside him about leading his team, and it's just been super refreshing. And everything he's done has been the right step, the right play, even including they showed him just sitting in his office, just struggling with these decisions, man. That's the human aspect of it. That's something that you're not going to get out of a robotic Bill Belichick. You know what I mean? As good as he is, the dude's just doesn't seem that like warm and like inviting of a person and like a human, man. Like Dan Campbell does, and I just love to see it. That's going to do it for me, boys. If you haven't already, make sure and hit like. Go ahead and subscribe to the channel on your way out the door. If you made it this long into the video, I genuinely appreciate it. And y'all try and have just a banging rest of your day, man. I've been Hat and Beard. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Later.
1.21 gigawatts!